Again, Houston. He's got a hole. He's over. Alabama touchdown.
I'm just wondering if your listeners know how good a football player you were. I can still see you playing that fullback, knocking those players out of the way. And I believe I could have run behind you.
Martin, I can remember when we came to summer and you were playing fullback up there, and I saw you in the weight room and watched you work out in the weight room. If you were strong enough to pick up the whole weight room. I wanted to pick it, and I running back coach didn't take the biggest mistake we ever made.
The Martin Houston Show with national championship winning fullback Martin Houston, giving you 1 hour of intense, hard-hitting analysis from an insider's perspective. It's time for the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9, and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Good morning. Welcome to the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaXSports. We're live, local, and ready to get things rolling right here on your home for Alabama sports, Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC. We want to invite you to get in on the conversation at 205-342-9904. That's 205-342-9904. That's the Alabama One hotline. We're live, local, and ready to get things going. So go ahead and make that call or send us your comments, your reactions, or your questions into the live stream on chat. That's the Martin Houston 35 and Martin Houston 35 fan page on Facebook, Martin Houston 35 on YouTube and the X. We also have MaXSports and X's and O Sports and Tide 100.9 on Facebook. All of those will get you into the conversation, and we'd love to have you be a part of it. We got a great show lined up for you. We got the playbook for today. Kennington Smith III will join us in the second quarter and remain with us for the rest of the show. We'll catch up with him on Alabama versus Georgia, Alabama versus Michigan, college football playoffs, etc. We'll talk about all SEC honorees who made it in and who didn't. We'll talk Heisman and hoops and a whole lot more. We just need you to get in and get with us this morning. Remember that this is the day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. Good morning, X. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Doing well. Ready to get things rolling. This morning, we'll start off with a little basketball hoops in terms of men's basketball. Alabama had a tough one this past weekend. It was going to be the Toronto challenge, as Alabama was going to be playing. Did play Purdue, but it was going to be Bediako and Edie of Purdue in their hometown. And of course, Bediako deciding to opt for the NBA, and the player of the year comes back and probably the leading candidate for player of the year. But did you get to catch any of the game or hear any of the game or see any of it?
I did. And that, I think that was one of the worst officiated games I've seen in a long time. And maybe that's just the Bama bias in me. But when you look at a guy like Zach Edey, he's a extremely talented player. But man, Alabama wasn't able to do anything. This guy could hook us, back over us, and it was a call on Bama. You're talking about all of your big men having 2 or 3 fouls in the first half. It's hard to win in games like that when you have 7-2, 7-3, 7-4. It's hard to win games like that when you've got that physically of an imposing player that they allow every call to go his way.
Yeah, I've heard from people close to the program all the way up to people who were not close to the program, meaning neutral observers, and they all said that it was really, really bad. How the lack of calls he got against him and the number of calls he got for him. So it wasn't just that they let him play more physical, whether it's on the offensive end or the defensive end. It was an overall. We couldn't touch him, and he could kind of bulldoze us, and he doesn't need any help. Uh,
No.
I want people to understand this guy is a really, really good player on a really, really good team. I think they were the preseason number one team, and they're going to be there in the end, barring something unexpected. So you don't ever want to be a program that's on the rise and be a program that feels good about their chances to make a run in the playoffs or into the March Madness tournament and start talking about moral victories and things like that. But on the other hand, Alabama has to feel good about, some of the things. There even in this loss, there were some things that came out from it. So I said, what were your takeaways from positive takeaways that maybe this team can build on?
Yeah, the positive takeaway is Mark Sears. He's been playing absolutely lights out so far this year at 35 points. And I mean, he carried Bama 35 of the 86 points. And even with the bad calls, when you look at the fact that this game only ended up being a 6-point loss and Bama had an opportunity, you got to like knowing that if a game really is called, in my opinion, equally fairly, Bama could come out on top in these situations.
Yeah, Mark Sears had 35 points on 50% from the free 3-point line, 8 for 16. And Edie had 35. The irony of it, that neutral, even with all of that, to your point, X, even with all of that, they neutralized each other. Brayden Smith, I think he averaged 11 to 12 points a game. He went for 27. Um, and I think that's the difference. He went for 27. he got like 14, 15 points more than his average. And we still, had a chance down the stretch late in that game, had it to a 1.1 possession game. But Edie went 11 for 11 from the free throw line. And so it's kind of tough to combat that. But another thing, this team, if you ask me which team is probably close to being at their best, I mean, at their ceiling, I would say that's Purdue. You have to look at this Alabama Crimson Tide team and go, okay, 3 new coaches, all these new players, and they just went toe-to-toe with possibly the best team in the country and had a chance to win. We'll see what happens there, X, as far as the basketball world goes. And like I said, you don't want to get to a point where you're living off moral victories when you're trying to be a championship program, but you have to know that this team has an opportunity to continue to gel and get better. Nate Oates even talked about, decisions to play for the 3-point shooter versus playing certain guys maybe more minutes than maybe he could have or should have, whichever way you want to look at that. You have to look at that, and Diabate did not play as much in this game because he was going more for 3-point shooters. He said maybe they should play more defense. And what do you think a couple of areas that they need to improve in? To me, is one particular area, and this game kind of throws a wrinkle into that because of the way the game was called.
I love the hard nosed performances that we got from some of our bigs. When you stop and look at it, you wish the shots had fallen for guys like Estrada who've been hitting. If he had his typical game, this game probably ends up a little different. But Mo, I always mess up his last name. Wegu. He played extremely well, and he fought down low with Edie. And I think he ends up being the guy that you see starting at the 5 moving forward after this performance he's had over the last couple of games. So, I mean, it's still a little bit of tweaking. Excuse me, a little bit of tweaking that Alabama has to do. But this team is moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I mean, you don't want to be 6-3, and they, hey man, they got a tough stretch coming up. Creighton in Arizona could be drop 3 in a row, or could come out with 2 monster wins if they take what they learn from this. I think their defense has to get better, and it's a want to as well. It's skill, talent, but also some want to because you've seen some of these guys show that they can play defense in spurts. Sears is one of those guys. He has to play with the same intensity on the defensive end that he plays on the offensive end. So he has to get like me, X, when it comes to the blocking, how I hated blocking in football and I wanted to run the ball all the time. And Coach Kirksey told me, said, hey, if you learn to block and do the things you hate to do well, the things you love to do will come easy. And that's what I adopted that mindset finally my senior year, and ended up by some voted as the nation's best blocker. And I got to run the ball over 100 times my senior year. So it can work out, and that's what we're going to need from Sears moving forward. The other guys, they're just going to Wagyu and a few of the freshmen. I don't think they've came along as fast as the other freshman class did last year, but I think there's still some more there for them. I think they'll continue to grow and get better and better and better. And so you'll see that coming into play as this Alabama team finishes out a couple more tough games. If those guys get better, I think this team's upside still has quite a room between where they are and the ceiling. So we'll talk about that as we continue to cover basketball throughout the season. And as we go to break here, man, the high school football playoffs ended on a high note. If you're an Alabama fan, there's some Alabama folks that's nervous about the 9 a.m. announcement. Is it reclassification or is it decommitment of Ryan Williams? The young man had 300-plus yards, all-purpose yards Friday night with 4 touchdowns as his team came up 3 points short. But the other side of that was Alabama's other commitment was the Dagger that had 4 touchdowns as well. We'll talk about those guys on the other side with Kennington Smith, the third, as he joins the conversation. Will he reclassify? Will he decommit? What's going on there? I think he's coming to the Tide, and Tide's going to get a great player a year early. And, we need to talk about the Heisman Trophy winner and Jaden Daniels. Does Alabama have a guy who has the same potential to make the type of run? We'll talk about those things and more right here on the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports. Martin and Xavier will be joined by Kennington Smith III on the other side.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things looking pretty good on the roadways on this Monday morning. Now, if you do see conditions throughout the day that folks need to hear about, give me a call, 205-886-8886. The year-end clearance is on now at Townsend Nissan with savings up to $10,000. Don't miss it. I'm Captain Ray.
Marketing your business today can be more confusing than ever. Town Square Media Tuscaloosa is the leader in local content for Tuscaloosa and the West Alabama area. We deliver results on air and online for our clients. Here's what our clients are saying about doing business with Town Square Media.
Hey, this is Shane Spiller with Spiller Furniture and Mattress. And every week I have someone tell me, hey, I heard you on the radio. So thanks, Town Square, for helping me to grow my business.
To learn more about our marketing opportunity, contact us at TuscaloosaThread.com. Click on Advertise prize with us.
The Birmingham Racecourse Casino 7 days of giveaways is going on now. The more you visit, the more chances you have to win. We're giving away $125,000 in free play and cash. That's right. Birmingham Racecourse Casino is giving away $125,000 in free play and cash. Play the latest, most exciting games around with fun bonuses and big jackpots. There's always more ways to win at Birmingham Racecourse Casino off I-459.
Tide and the Michigan Wolverines in the college football playoff semifinal at the Rose Bowl. Our coverage starts at 1 on New Year's Day on your home for Alabama football.
Brought to you by Birmingham Racecourse. BirminghamRacecourse.com. You can be a winner too.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
A sunny but very cool day today. Tuscaloosa's high 51. A freeze tonight, clear with a low at 29. The weather stays dry tomorrow and Wednesday. A good supply of sunshine both days. Highs between 55 and 58. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 30 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Interact with the Martin Houston Show by calling us at 205-342-9904 or tuning into the Martin Houston Show on Facebook.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaXSports. We have Kennington Smith III joining the conversation. Before we bring him in, want to remind you of our great sponsors. Don't forget to go check out Taco Casa. Taco Casa, quality, taste, and value under the biggest cactus in town. 6 locations in Tuscaloosa, West Alabama to better serve you. Also one up in Birmingham off of Lakeshore Drive. And along with Taco Casa, we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a happy New Year. Taco Casa, doing it the right way for 40-plus years and counting. Taco Casa, quality, taste, and value under the biggest cactus in town. All right, let's keep the conversation going. Good morning, Kennington. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. We're glad to see you made it back and everything. We're going to circle back with you just a moment on all of the things that happened last weekend, Georgia football and Alabama getting into the playoffs and college football playoffs and all of that. But before we do that, just want to know, now, do you have to cover any recruiting or what's coming to the Crimson Tide in your current role? And if so, do you have any thoughts on whether Mr. Ryan Williams, the dynamic wide receiver for Saraland High School, will he commit to Alabama, or will he reclassify and commit, or is he decommitting and going to Auburn?
Yeah, to answer the first part, recruiting is a part of my job. It's not a huge part. I'm not the same as like an on-3 or a 24/7 that tracks, day-to-day recruitments of kids, but it is part of my job to kind of follow trends and comment if necessary. As far as, Ryan Williams, I would find it hard to believe that if he was flipping to Auburn, that he would have taken that visit to Alabama just a few days ago. I believe he was on campus, a couple of days ago, on Instagram Live, with the jersey and everything. I would find it hard to believe that he would do that and then flip to Auburn a few days later. I don't know if this is a tell or not, but last night I was actually, kind of looking through his huddle, looking at some highlights and things in case he does end up reclassifying. And on this huddle page, it says class of 2024. So maybe that's the oversight or a typo or, maybe that, I don't want to, read the tea leaves too much, but it does say class of 2024 on his huddle page. So it does feel like it's probably trending in that direction. Alabama does need, to bolster the receiver room a little bit. And obviously him doing that and joining them mid-year would add a huge dynamic element to their room. So if I'm choosing which one is more likely, I think reclassifying is more likely than flipping to Auburn.
Well, and I'll tell you, you said you don't see him taking a visit. We got a 5-star that was actually on his visit at Auburn, Kennington, was on his visit, left, and drove up to Tuscaloosa.
Wow.
Yeah. You're the guy named Reuben Foster?
Oh, yeah. Well, his recruitment was all over the place.
But
he lived in Auburn, played in Auburn, and was on a visit at Auburn and left during the visit and was then later. I would hate to have seen what that would have done X in today's culture, because it was a little bit of the Instagram, all that stuff, but back then maybe, but a little social media, but nothing like today. But he literally left that without a doubt. But anyway, X, your thoughts on? I didn't give you a chance to reply to the big time 6A matchup with Alabama. It was other great recruits. Texas had a recruit in there. Auburn had a recruit in there. All of them made big plays. Your thoughts on? But the two superstars is committed to Alabama in the battle they had.
Ryan Williams and Jalen Bachway put on an absolute show Friday night, and it was a great way to close out the Super 7 this past week, where we saw guys committed to schools all over the country put on big performances. At Bryant-Denny, and of course Ryan Williams over 300 yards. His first two catches, they were making comparisons to the Randy Moss game against the Cowboys back in the day. He had two catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns to kick things off. But Mbakwe, his over 100 yards passing, over 100 yards rushing, and 4 total touchdowns, was able to be enough to win the game. Man, I watched the second half of it. Man, it was a lot of offense in the first half, and then defense showed up in the second half for both teams. And Clay Chalkville was able to get a field goal later on in the game to seal the victory for them. But great performances by both of those young men.
Absolutely, and that's the crazy part. Alabama just had a guy quarterback his team to the state championship in 6A football, Kennington, and will probably be a defensive back at Alabama. It'll be fun to watch him, but I guarantee you he might have just earned himself a few snaps on the other side of the ball with the season he's had as he quarterbacked the Clay Chalkville to the state championship. All right, Ken, you can comment on that, but I want to also begin to switch our conversation with you since we didn't get to catch up with you last week. And it's not going to get old for a while as the Alabama Crimson Tide was able to, reestablish themselves as the top of college football. Anytime you win SEC, you have claimed to be the best team in college football, regardless of whether college football playoffs or anyone acknowledges that or not. Just what's your overall thoughts on the Alabama Crimson Tide and their win against the Georgia Bulldogs?
Yeah, I think you saying reestablishing themselves hit it on the head. And I wrote about this right after the game, was that it felt like there was more at stake than the SEC championship when Georgia and Alabama played. There was the unofficial title of top dog in college football at stake because Alabama's been the standard of college football for over a decade, and Georgia's recent run called that into question. Who was the standard in the sport? And it had been a talking point SEC media days. I remember J.C. Latham having to answer those questions at his booth, like, is Georgia the standard of college football? Are they overtaking y'all as a program? And he, obviously severely pushed back on that. And then Bama's early season struggles kind of put a magnifying glass on it. So that matchup to me felt like an opportunity for either Georgia to take the mantle or for Alabama to reestablish themselves. And obviously the latter occurred. And regardless of if Alabama made the playoff or not, their success this season was not going to be defined by that. It was going to be defined by them reestablishing themselves as a standard, and they did that. Obviously, they did get selected to the playoffs. I felt like it was the right decision by the committee. If we're talking about the most deserving team, Bama has more ranked wins than anyone. They played a tougher schedule than anyone. Of anybody who was considered to go to the playoffs, that is. If we want to talk about the best teams, if you look at the top 4 plus Florida State, there's no way that you could say Bama would be the 5th best team on that list. So that's kind of the crux of what the committee looks for, right? The best team, the most deserving team, who has the best wins, who play the hardest schedule, and that's Alabama. So they did lose the game to Texas, but they were just as deserving as anybody. And history indicates that they're going to make good on making it to the playoffs.
Yeah, the only time Alabama or an SEC team haven't made good on that was the first year, and I think that Ohio State caught lightning in a bottle with Cardell Jones, and I think they had an advantage that they had a really good player that no one had film on, so you really didn't know how. Even though he played in one game, you really didn't know how to defend this guy. And I think they caught lightning in a bottle, and it was good. And I think Alabama could have even won that one had they stayed with their guns, and they didn't. But either way, the SEC has always shown up in terms of the college football playoffs, and I don't see this being any different, even though it's our Alabama Crimson Tide that's heading that way. At the beginning of the year, Kennington, we looked at key matchups and who we would give the advantage to and all of that. And one of those areas was the wide receiver position. And you gave a distinct advantage to Georgia because they had, Missouri and Mississippi State's leading wide receiver come into play. They had McConkey back. What's your thoughts now in terms of the growth of those two units, and which one would you give the edge to now?
Yeah, I think obviously with Georgia, there was an expectation of Dom Lovett, Ra Thomas stepping in and enhancing the room and adding a different element. And I don't think either of those really came into fruition. Ra Thomas kind of had an up and down year on the field, off the field. Dom Lovett had some early struggles and came on late, but it didn't feel like he was that Dom Lovett of Missouri. Like it didn't feel like Georgia had the leading receiver in the SEC on their team this year when he was out there. Alabama's development is a little bit different because they probably don't have the same depth. Like Georgia plays a lot of receivers, and a lot of receivers get touches for a lot of the year. It was really Burton and Bond, and then a couple of guys came on as of late. So if you're looking at just like kind of the top line guys, I think Alabama's room has the advantage there. I think that played out in the SEC championship. You were able to see Burton and Bond win in one-on-one matchups in situations where Georgia's receivers could not. And there's NFL talent in both of those secondaries. So both receiving corps face equal challenges, and Bama's receivers rose to the occasion. So, I did kind of doubt Bama's receiver room compared to Georgia, but they definitely showed me. I guess that makes me a naysayer. So they definitely let me know. But shout out to, Burton has had a really good year. I think he answered a lot of critics this year. Bond's obviously come on. They have some other guys that can contribute as well. So, I think Alabama's receiver room has definitely shown that they can be productive. And if you're looking at this game against Michigan, I would give them the advantage over the Wolverines in that aspect as well.
We'll keep that line of conversation going on the other side. We have Kennington Smith III of The Athletic in with us at Skinny Kenny _ at Skinny Kenny _ on the X. We'll talk more with him. If you have a question for him, please go ahead and get that conversation or that question in. The Alabama One hotline is open for business, 205-342-9904. We'll keep it going right here on your home for Alabama Sports, Tide 100.9.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things looking pretty good on the roadways on this Monday morning. Now, if you do see conditions throughout the day that folks need to hear about, give me a call, 205-886-8886. The year-end clearance is on now at Townsend Nissan with savings up to $10,000. Don't miss it. I'm Captain Ray.
Ask big. Have you seen our artisan-created diamonds? If you've been in a room with one, you can't miss it.
Tom Osmond from Fincher & Osmond.
It's a diamond like I've never seen.
And he's seen a lot of diamonds.
Ask big.
At Fincher & Osmond, you can put artisan-created diamonds side by side with mined diamonds. When you see it.
More importantly, when she sees it.
FincherandOsmond.com.
McFarland Boulevard between Edgar's and Local Roots.
Hi, I can help whoever's
Cooper's Overnight Shipping Company has to deliver the goods.
Ship these gifts to your grandkids.
They need a logistics manager to keep the wheels turning.
126 packages going to Toronto, Tuscaloosa, Montreal, and Minneapolis. Oh boy.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed, you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
God says in Jeremiah 31:3, I have always loved you. This Christmas be reminded, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth on him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Love is what Christmas is about. Let his love in, let his Son in, and have a Merry Christmas from Taco Casa.
Imagine it's the final game of the season, but your symptoms of irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, are making a comeback. What should you do? Keep managing your constipation with belly pain the same old way? Or try getting ahead of your symptoms by talking to your doctor about Linzess, linaclotide. Linzess is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually.
Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling.
Imagine, what could relief from IBS-C mean for you? Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
Keep it locked into Tide 100.9 for more of the Martin Houston Show with Martin Houston and X's and O's Sports' Xavier Houston.
Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaXSports. We have Kennington Smith III on with us. Want to remind you of the great folks over at Billy's Cooking Restaurant. Billy's Cooking Restaurant. You can find them on Facebook at Billy's Cooking LLC. As Wing Wednesday, Fish Friday, Soul Food Sundays, opening Wednesday through Sunday at 11 a.m. You can go check them out. Let them know that I told you to stop by, and all of my first-time guests, first-time visitors there, with the purchase of $15 or more, purchase of your meal, really, you will be able to get a free pork sandwich on Saturday. So stop by and visit them on a Saturday, and they'll take care of you. All right, we'll get back to the conversation with Kennington Smith III. I want to invite you to get in on the Alabama One hotline, 205-342-9904, 205-342-9904. That's the Alabama One hotline. Or put your thoughts, comments, questions, etc. in chat. Kennington, as we wrap up that wide receiver room conversation, we talked about Ryan Williams coming in potentially. It looks like Ty Jones-Bell, who didn't participate really this year, has just come up short of expectation, is in the portal. And surprisingly, all year we kept hearing that Ja'Cory Brooks was injured, never fully got back from the injury from the spring. Also that he got in the doghouse. He's now in the portal. But when you look at that room, is Isaiah Bond that next Judy Smith type player? Because to me, he elevated and lifted his game to, just an all-star level in the biggest moments, in the biggest seasons.
Yeah, I definitely think it's trending in that direction. I think he was somebody at the beginning of the year that was more of an X factor when Ja'Cory Brooks was expected to be a huge part of the offense, when Malik Benson probably had more expectations about somebody who's going to be a breakout player than obviously Jermaine Burton. But Bond has just consistently shown up in those big moments. I think the clutch factor is obviously there and probably comparable to other great Bama receivers. You think about the big plays, especially the big moments. The Auburn game obviously sticks out. So I think, next year he's really in position to kind of take hold of that. Him and Milroe have a great connection. So kind of going into next year, full confidence. I do expect Bond to kind of be in that all SEC level of receiver room. And we'll see who else kind of rounds out the rest of that rotation. But I wouldn't be surprised if the playoff, in a way, was somewhat of a coming out party for Bond.
Yeah, and some people seem to think that it was all about Benson not being good. And I told him, I said, guys, I don't know that it wasn't that Benson wasn't good. I just think that he got pushed more than expected. We had some sophomores who got a lot of playing time last year, and those guys just got better. Burton was better than expected. Bond was better than Prentice was the best of the guys last year, and he didn't completely fall off. You had a tight end step up that got reps. I mean, so I think some people have fallen off of Benson just because of he didn't have it. I wouldn't sell that stock just yet. Your thoughts there?
Yeah, 100%. I think also Bama is just playing a completely different style than they have the last 2 years. The amount of 12 personnel that they are using this year is staggering, and they had to play that way because of what the offense was at the beginning of the year and kind of how it's evolved over time. I mean, there was a point in the season where the tight end room was better and deeper than the receiver room, and the snap count reflected that. So Benson has come on as of late. I think statistically it's not eye-popping, but I would just encourage people to watch the games and see the impact that he's making in those games. Don't just quite look at how many catches and yards, whatever. His playing time has increased throughout the second half of the year, and when he's had opportunities, he's made some plays. So I would agree with you there. I think it's more so to the style that they've played and just kind of taking more advantage of the personnel they have, which has favored the tight end this year more than pretty much any other year that Saban's been the coach. So, I'm not selling my Malik Benson stock either, and I would expect him to have a much more featured role next year.
Yeah, looking back at the Georgia game for how Alabama performed, where do you think the switch happened? Because when you look at the way Bama the way Georgia came out, 83 yards, first drive, 7 points, looks like they were going to be in control of the game, especially after that second 3-and-out for Alabama. Coach Saban talked about some adjustments that they made on defense, but what do you think the turning point was for Bama to take control of the games last week?
Yeah, I think actually I thought a huge shift was the special teams. When there was a sequence, I don't remember it exactly, but there was I think a poor punt by Georgia or a great punt by James Burnup that pinned Georgia deep, and then they had a poor punt that set Alabama up near midfield. It was like a 23, 25-yard shift in field position in that one sequence, and that let Alabama kind of go down, score, and then you started to see the defense kind of gain some confidence and start stringing some stops together. So I think it kind of started there. And then just Milroe just being able to kind of use his legs a little bit more, not so much in a way of, breaking off long runs, but just kind of using his legs to manipulate the pocket and to create some big plays for the offense. So, I think the burner punt that pinned Georgia inside the 10, I think they had a 3-and-out poor punt, set them up in favorable field position, then they score. And then from there, the momentum of the game kind of shifted in Alabama's favor. But I think the point where I knew that Alabama was going to win was definitely that last drive of the first half when, Kirby called that timeout. I believe it was on a fourth down. Then they kind of do the whole, timeout back and forth thing. And then obviously Milroe hits Bond. They go score a touchdown. So when they went up by 10 at half, I felt pretty confident that Bama was going to win. But I think kind of that early punt sequence kind of set the stage for them to seize that momentum.
Yeah. Xavier, did you have something else?
No, I know the point that he's talking about, and of course we see the last drive of the first half. But even with that, Kennington, Georgia came back and made it tight at the end. And when you look at the growth of Jalen, when you see the in previous times, that might have been when it became a 3-point game. He might not have gotten it done, but the growth that you've also seen in him to come back out 4 for 4 on that last drive, hitting Bond, extending the play, the little flip out. What growth has that have you seen from that Texas game where we were in a similar position to retake a lead, to take control of a game to what we saw against Georgia?
Yeah, I think Jalen's gotten a lot more comfortable with, reading the whole field and not just like going for a huge play every time. I think, especially that drive where Georgia's kind of dropping a lot and Milroe's kind of like, dancing around the pocket trying to find a man. He took a lot of check downs that ended up going for, pretty long gains, some sizable conversions. So I think him just being more comfortable and not forcing it, not trying to force the ball in the window, sticking with the defense that gives him, and not bailing out of the pocket so quickly. I think there were a couple of times where, there was the pocket might have been kind of collapsing a bit. He kind of held in there, didn't lose his cool. Like I said, he hit Braun on a couple of underneath routes that went for a long gain. So I think that type of confidence is a sizable difference compared to the beginning of the year. And I think just Reese, trusting him and having that trust in him and just kind of letting him know, like, hey, this is a tough situation. We're going to put the ball in your hands and we trust you to kind of go out there and make plays. I think that's made a huge difference as well, something that probably can't be quantified in statistics. So I think those two things mirrored together kind of have made all the difference. And, how about Tommy Reese as well? Somebody who was a question mark at the beginning of the year. But I thought he had a good game plan. I thought that, he won the matchup, obviously, over Mike Bobo and got the best of, Schumann and Muschamp late in that game as well.
Yeah, go ahead. X, go ahead. I thought you were about to say something. If you weren't, I'll
No,
take
you're
it.
good.
Yeah, it's interesting when you look at Nick Saban and this team. I'm going to see if I can find something real quick, Kennington. That Nick Saban, one of the things that we've talked about is just him as a whole, what he does or doesn't do per se. And one of his knocks was, last year as we played against Tennessee over and over, Tennessee had something that worked, and Nick Saban just, kind of refused to change. And I'm gonna let you comment and respond to this particular video or comment and see if this wasn't, to me, one of the biggest moments in the game.
Coach, you discussed the value of the tight end in that matchup.
Oh, sorry.
What did you do to minimize number 19, Brock Bowers of Georgia?
All split safety. And the one McConkey caught to the 1 yard line, we were in middle field coverage. Middle of the field coverage didn't do us much good today. That's what we played like in that first drive. So we played split safeties the whole time. Now, when you do that, you get more guys, somebody under them, somebody over them, somebody banging on them, and you're not covering them one-on-one. But to do that, you got to be able to stop the run. And our guys did a really good job with all that split safety stuff of stopping the run today so we could play it. Because we went into the game thinking we couldn't play it. But after the first drive, I said, can't get any worse. Let's just start playing it.
That's Coach Nick Saban, Kennington, talking about the plan going in was to play, the middle of the field, and they didn't think they could play split safeties and et cetera. And after the first drive, they got 83 yards. Nick Saban made an adjustment to defense into his DBs. Was it growth by our coach that may have got us to this championship game? And ironically, we go back to it on their last touchdown drive. Your thought there, because I haven't heard anybody talk about that fact that Nick Saban went away from what he had prepared, and it just shows how deep and how talented this Alabama defense is.
Yeah, and I think it kind of continues to underscore the point of how good of a coaching job this has been by him this year, is that without those adjustments, you would think that Georgia probably would have won that game maybe by double digits if Alabama didn't adjust. So the fact that he was able to just kind of adjust on the fly and just kind of adapt in real time I think speaks to, maybe some growth by him, which might sound crazy that, Nick Saban still has room to grow being the greatest of all time. But, like you said, to be able to do that as quickly as it did and kind of scrap a game plan and go something different was huge in the game, and it made a huge difference. And I think also when he's talking about stopping the run, that was a huge element in the game. And I know that talking about Bobo has been a kind of a reoccurring theme on our Monday segments, but I found it baffling that Georgia continuously tried those toss sweeps to the short side against Alabama's defense. Is just like, do you think that you're going to out-athlete Alabama to the perimeter, especially with the running backs that Georgia has? I mean, there's no Sonny Michel, there's no Nick Chubb in that backfield, and credit to Alabama, they took advantage of that. They continuously stopped Georgia on short, down and distance situations to get the ball back to the offense. So, credit the defense for unbelievable game on the ground. And then, those long distance situations, Georgia's receivers couldn't get any separation against Alabama's defensive backs. And, that adjustment made a huge difference in the game and ultimately stifled Georgia's offense for, pretty much 80% of that game. Kind of like the first drive they scored, last few drives they scored, but everything in the middle, they were shut down.
And the reality of it is, Nick Saban himself said we were in our game plan in the first drive, and we were in our game plan in the last drive. That was our two other touchdown drives. I mean, literally, what we game planned didn't work in two of their touchdown drives was when we were in that defense. And it's funny, and I got to get the break after this, and we'll come back on the other side, Kennington, with some rapid fire. Got several things I want to get to, but what's funny is the Georgia fans now all of a sudden, Ladd was hurt, McConkey was hurt, and Bowers was hurt, but they weren't hurt on the first drive and the last touchdown. I mean, in the touchdown drive, but they were hurt in between. All right, come on now, Georgia. I think we lost 2 wide receivers, and when we use that as an excuse, y'all called us out on it. All right, so let it go. We'll be back on the other side with Kennedy Smith III of The Athletic. I'm going to do a little rapid fire, try to get him in on the Michigan game, the college football playoff, and all SEC. All three of those and a little bit more on the other side.
Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things look pretty good on the roadways. Now, we do see steady traffic on 2059 eastbound headed out toward Mercedes, and some minor congestion on McFarland at 69 in Northport. If you see conditions, give me a call. The year-end clearance is on now at Townsend Nissan with savings up to $10,000. Don't miss it. I'm Captain Ray.
Here's what's trending on the Tuscaloosa thread.
Good Monday morning. The Chamber of Commerce of West Alabama's Deputy Executive Director of West Alabama Works, Brittany Colburn, has been named the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives 2023 40 and under 40 list of emerging leaders shaping the Chamber of Commerce industry across the United States. Click TuscaloosaThread.com for more local news, sports, and weather coverage throughout the day. It's absolutely free. Todd Hartley, Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's the holiday mystery sale at JCPenney. How much will you save? An amazing coupon giveaway starts this Thursday. Everyone can enjoy guaranteed savings of an extra 30% off, or your chance at an extra 40 or 50% off your entire purchase in store. All the gifts you need, all the savings you want. Mystery solved. JCPenney. Make your holidays count. Offers valid on select styles 12/7 through 12/14. Exclusions apply. Giveaway in-store only. Must be 18 or older. See store or jcp.com for details.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard. Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun. So you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard. It's perfect.
Start learning a new language today. Go to Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Philip Ems, named for the great Choctaw chief Philip Martin, is considered the best fine dining in the South. In addition to their award-winning wine selection, Philip Ems offers everything from their delicious steaks and fresh seafood to their decadent desserts. Philip Ems is open Tuesday through Saturday. Book your table now at opentable.com and experience the best dining in the South. You'll find Philip M's exclusively inside the Silver Star Casino at the Pearl River Resort.
Welcome back to the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports. Your show, your team, on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back in to the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. I want to invite you to join us at Harvest Church on Sundays at 10 a.m., 9 a.m. worship service where we love God, love people. And we'd love to invite you to come join us for a great time of worship and fellowship along with family and friends. Harvest Church, hctuscaloosa.com. All right, Kennington, tell me real quick where they can find you, sir.
theathletic.com, Kennington Smith III, or Alabama football, or on X at skinnykenny_.
All right, that's at skinnykenny_ on the X in the Athletic. Great beat writer for the university, new to the fam. So he's learning all of our traditions. I'm going to do a little rapid fire here. Kennington, first and foremost, Alabama gets into the college football playoffs. Texas is all up in arms. The whole football world's up in arms. The reality of it is the BCS has gotten it right, got the same 4 teams every year since we went to the college football playoffs except for this year. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, every year except for this year, it's been the same 4 teams, not necessarily the same order, okay? You know who they had in and who was out? Texas was out this year. Texas, in my opinion, yes or no, Texas doesn't get in if Georgia wins, Florida State's in.
Yeah, 100%. The 4 unbeatens go in, and it's interesting that everybody says when Florida State gets left out, all the games have to matter. Well, except for Texas, who has the worst loss of any other teams in the top 5. But I digress.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. Is I was trying to point out when I said, guys, Texas don't get in without Alabama winning. Alabama got Texas into the playoffs. Like it, love it, or hate it, Texas fans. That's reality. MHS 0407 let them know that they're riding on our coattails, even though they beat us early in the season. Second is, what are your thoughts overall of the Alabama-Michigan matchup?
Yeah, kind of a strength on strength. Both teams want to run the ball. Both teams want to be physical. I think, I don't think either team is explosive enough to necessarily blow the other team out. I think it's going to be a pretty tight game, but I would give Alabama a slight edge in line of scrimmage, definitely an edge at the skill positions. So it's trending to an Alabama win, but I think it's a touchdown or fewer type of game.
And you and I are probably way off on this. I think Kennington, I think Michigan is a poor man version of Georgia. I think that they have not played the type of speed they will play against us. And even though Georgia can match up with us, I don't think they can. I think they're one-dimensional. And I don't think that they have a back who got Georgia back into this game. Or Georgia, Alabama would have been a blowout. So that's a little different thought there. Of course, I will go ahead and preface that, Kennington, with the fact that I absolutely disdain Jim Harbaugh. So I may have a little bias, and not necessarily Crimson bias, but a little Michigan Harbaugh hate bias in my prediction. So I recognize that. And hey, real quick, this team started the year off without a lot of superstars, a lot of guys who were trying to make their way. Your overall thoughts on how they did with Alabama and the All-SEC team, and whether there's some guys that should be first team that didn't get it as far as this year?
Yeah, I was really surprised that Tyler Booker and Terrion Arnold were not in the conversations for first team selections. I thought
that's my two.
Both of those got, it was like, Latham and McKinstry obviously played great, not taking away anything from them, but it felt like Arnold and Booker were, performing at a higher level, at least statistically, than those two. I was surprised that they got left off, but I guess that's just more fuel to the fire. Also, Will Riker not winning the Groza was insane. I know you asked about the SEC.
No, you're fine.
That was an injustice.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me at all. And I think Arnold and Kool-Aid and Latham got in on name recognition. I do not think either one of us had as good a season as McKinstry and Arnold. I mean, Booker and Arnold.
I would agree with that.
Well, now we had Jaden Daniels win the Heisman. What do you think? You know, and to me, Neighbors got robbed by not getting the Biletnikoff Award. Clearly, people go, well, statistically, that's why Daniels won. Well, maybe Neighbors is why Daniels was good, and not that Neighbors was good because of Daniels. Does Alabama have that combo coming back in terms of Jalen Milroe? Do they have a finalist both for the Heisman and for the Biletnikoff Award in Milroe and Bond?
Yeah, potentially. It'll be interesting to see how Alabama plays next year because they're going to bring back, I would assume, all of their tight ends. So it'll be interesting, kind of what the personnel looks like and if Bond gets enough opportunities to get into the Biletnikoff. I mean, that's kind of like an 80 catch, 1,500 yard, almost 20 touchdown type of conversation. So it'll be interesting if he gets that many touches. But Jalen Milroe, I feel like, has to be the early favorite for the 2024 Heisman Trophy. I mean, he was just outside the top 5 this year. He's going to be one of the premier quarterbacks, one of the premier players coming back into college football next year. So definitely,
he's the highest returning vote getter.
Okay, yeah. Well, him, Beck, Ollie Gordon probably would be my top 3 going into next year. Bond has that ability level to get into that conversation, but I'm not sure if statistically it's going to get there. But we'll see.
20-second response. Kendrick Law will be what on this team next year?
Debo Samuel. I don't know exactly what position he's going to play. Let's see if Bama either signs a running back or gets one out of the portal, but he's going to be a starter on this team. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, I love to watch that guy run. I mean, he reminds me. So you know how all year I spent all season saying Alabama needs to go watch the Eagles to figure out how to use Jalen Milroe. I hope they spend some time with the Eagles. I mean, the 49ers and Shanahan and how they do that. So thanks, Kennington. We appreciate you, man. Great job, great info. And hey, guys, go to theathletic.com or Kenny at Skinny Kenny _ on the X. We'll catch up with you next week, Kenny.
Yeah, thank y'all for having me. Enjoy the weekend. Happy holidays.
All right, roll tide out there, everybody. I'm Martin. That's Xavier Houston. That's Kennington Smith III. That's Justin pressing all the right buttons. Remember this, trust in the Lord always. Lean not your own understanding. All your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Roll tide out there, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Martin Houston Show on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app. Tide 100.9 traffic.
From the Townsend Nissan Traffic Center, no active wrecks. Things look pretty good on the roadways. Now, we do see steady traffic on 2059 eastbound, headed out toward Mercedes, and some minor congestion on McFarland.